Hey there, entrepreneur. Thanks so much for tuning in to another special edition of the Business Building Rockstar Show. I'm hanging out with my friend Dorie Clark. I'm so excited to talk with her about what's going on with her, because I just got back from Orlando where we wound up hanging out, and she was telling me about her launch that's coming up, and I thought, let's get her on the show so she can share it, because Dorie is the woman to follow when it comes to, if you want to stand out, if you want to get your message out in a bigger way, which I know a lot of my audience does, there is nobody better. She gave me her beautiful book, Stand Out, and she's got an awesome self-assessment workbook that also listeners can get their hands on. We'll tell you about that in just a little bit. But before we do, I'm not going to do a proper bio intro. If you want to hear that, you can, of course, go back to the interview I did with Dorie earlier in 2016. But I just want to say this woman not only is a adjunct professor at Duke and travels all over the world to teach, and she consults with some of the biggest businesses in the world, and she's a comedian, and she's a TEDx speaker, and she's now Grammy winner for being a producer on a jazz album. Like, the woman has done everything. She knows how to stand out. She knows how to help her clients stand out, and I'm super excited that she is here to help you stand out. So welcome, Dorie Clark.
Hey, Nicole. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. So we just hung out, and you were telling me about your launch that's happening like right now. And tell us about what this launch is. And I use the word launch. Most of my listeners know what a launch is, but maybe you can even back it up a little bit just to say what a launch is, why you're doing it, and what comes at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that the launch process is kind of fascinating. So I've enjoyed learning about it as well. But so I had been thinking for a while about creating an online course because, of course, as you mentioned, for a long time now, I've been teaching in-person classes at academic institutions, starting in 2003, I began teaching undergrads at the time I was living in Boston. So I taught at Tufts and Emerson and Suffolk, and did that for many years. And then around 2010, I started teaching at various business schools. And lately, my primary affiliation is with the Duke Fuqua School of Business. And that is fantastic, of course, but you're dealing with small groups of people, sometimes as small as 10, maybe at the max 50, something like that. And if you really want to be able to scale your impact and reach more people, online courses are oftentimes the best way to do it. I mean, famously, Sebastian Thrun made headlines. He was the former head of Google X, and he was also a tenured Stanford professor who left his job. He left his tenured job to be a founder of Udacity, which was one of the online course platforms, because he started teaching an online course for Stanford. They got 100,000 registrants, and he realized, like, okay, I could never do this in a million years of being a traditional teacher. So anyway, I would love to get 100,000 students. I'm working on that. But in the interim, I'm pleased just in general to be expanding the scope. So broadly speaking, I created a course called Recognized Expert, which is largely based on my book, Stand Out, but it's personalizing things. It's helping walk students through the process of how to apply those concepts to their own lives. So how do you develop breakthrough ideas? How do you get known for them? How do you distinguish yourself in the marketplace? And so last year in 2016, I ran a pilot with about 50 students. And then in September, ran the first full launch iteration of it. So this has been a really exciting process, bringing people through it. And so now, in March 2017, this is my first, you could call it a kind of, big blowout launch, where I'm working with partners to spread the word even more widely, because the course has been honed and tested and sharpened. It is very much ready for prime time. And so I'm excited to bring new people through it, because for me, something that I feel very passionate about is, as someone who's been an entrepreneur for the past 11 years, I know that it is getting harder and harder every day with all the noise, with all the, the stimuli and the confusion in the marketplace, to really be recognized, even if you are really smart and really talented and have really good things to offer. It's just hard to be heard. And it is a separate skill set than being good at what you do. And so I want to help people learn that skill set so that they actually can contribute their best ideas to the world, and they actually can be able to thrive in their entrepreneurial ventures, because otherwise it's a waste of talent and a waste of ideas, which I think is not the way things should be.
Totally agree. And as a podcast host, I mean, just a podcast, I say just a podcast because really, I mean, there's so many different medias that are so much bigger. And I've not even been a year at podcasting. And even me as this little podcast host, I mean, I probably get at least 10 cold pitches a week. And it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how successful you are. You're just one of the many when it comes to me having to figure out, who you are and what you do. And generally, you're not going to stand out. You're not going to be any different from the crowd. And my calendar's already booked. So for somebody like me, if you want to get my attention and you don't already know me, you've got to do something special and you've got to be more than your resume. And that's not just me. I mean, I just got back from a conference of podcasters. And I mean, in any industry, I think where we have a platform that other people want to leverage, they have to be something special. And I love that you help people become that recognized expert.
Yeah, thank you.
What are some of the results that your students in your past 2 iterations have experienced since the course?
Oh, this is actually one of the most exciting parts of the course, is that we have a very active Facebook group for the course, and almost every day people are on there sharing their wins and sharing their success stories. And it's kind of amazing. We've got students who, as a result of the techniques they learned in the course, have been quoted in big name publications, everything from Forbes and Fast Company and Reader's Digest and, a kind of laundry list of big business and general interest publications. We have 2 students that started blogging and have subsequently in the few months since have been named official top bloggers on Medium, which is really cool. We have another student who used the course as essentially her accountability mechanism for writing and finishing a book, and she completed her book, which she then self-published, and that's amazing. We have connections that have formed between the students and with the community, which I think is fantastic. We have a group of, I think, close to 10 students that have formed a kind of accountability network amongst each other, and they're checking in regularly, to keep themselves on track for their brand building efforts. And we have people who, you can't guarantee this, obviously, but they network and they've actually gotten work out of it. One of my students told me that he had been hired for several paid webinars by another student in the course who runs a professional association. So, I mean, just the people that you meet, the connections, and the ability to learn how to crack the code on acquiring the social proof that you need, getting the kind of content creation muscles going, I think is quite powerful.
Fabulous. And can you tell us a little bit about who is the course for and who is it not for?
Yeah, so the course is for professionals that, as the name implies, right, know that they could benefit from becoming recognized experts. So if you are in a field where you feel that there is a distinct benefit to having people know your name, know what you are expert at, and then consequently, wanting to come to you, that is the sweet spot. And so typically this would be consultants, coaches, authors, entrepreneurs, maybe professional service providers like attorneys, psychotherapists, accountants, people like that. I would also argue that for many professionals that work inside corporations as well, if they have a kind of liberated understanding of personal brand, this would also be useful for them. But it's a pretty wide range of people who are in the group. We have people from international human rights lawyers to many therapists. We have lots of coaches and consultants. We have a We have a horticulture specialist. We have, people who talk about, leadership development. We have a woman who is the head of a professional association. Actually, we have a couple of heads of professional associations. We have academics. So it's a very interesting kind of high-level group, which I really like. I learn every day from my students, and I know people learn from each other. So I think that that's sort of the sweet spot in terms of who it's not for, because the core of the group, the core mission, is about how to become a recognized expert. If it is not appropriate for people who do not yet have a sense of what they want to do. So that's the thing. You don't necessarily have to be so far along that your breakthrough idea, right? I mean, the course actually helps you work on that and formulate it, but you need to at least know what your realm is. You need to know the place that you want to make your mark. If you're still in the sort of reinvention phase where you're like, well, maybe it's the travel industry, or maybe I could, be a web designer or whatever, that's a little too far upstream at this point. You need to have more clarity on the place that you want to stand out. But if you have that clarity, then I think it can be quite useful.
So yeah, probably people who are not feeling like experts yet. Although I think we all have these scripts in our head that are negative self-talk, and you definitely get people through that. But if you don't already know, confidently, yeah, I'm an expert in this, and I just need to learn how to get myself out there in a more confident, in a more powerful way, then it's probably a little bit early. Now you've got a 42-page self-assessment workbook that people can pick up. So whether they are at that reinvention stage or they are at that standout stage, they can go to bbrshow.com/Dorie, and that's DORIE, bbrshow.com/Dorie. And what are they going to get, experience, what have you, when they pick up your self-assessment workbook?
Yeah, so I created this, as you mentioned, 42-page standout self-assessment workbook, and basically what this does is it is a guide that people can download with a series of 139 questions that actually walks you step by step through the process of really looking inside yourself to determine, where you are excellent, where you know things you might not even know that you know, and just probing enough so that you can begin to get a handle on what your breakthrough idea might be, and then the steps to take to actually spread it. So it's beginning to kind of walk you through that so that you can gain clarity about what you can bring to the world and how to do it.
I find it's almost like a written coach. It's like if you were sitting in front of somebody, they would be asking you these questions until you were able to define them and then help you move forward. So I think this workbook is absolutely amazing, and it's really big, but you don't have to do it all in one sitting. Please don't.
No, definitely not.
So definitely, listeners, grab that at bbrshow.com/Dorie if you have any interest in becoming a recognized expert, if you have any interest in standing out, if you have any interest in really singing, or not singing actually, but really getting your voice out there and your message out there in a way that people respect you and admire you and listen to you and take action. It's about changing lives at the end of the day, I think. And if you don't feel like doing that, I don't know why you're still listening, but that's cool.
Yeah, what else?
bbrshow.com/Dorie. Dorie, you mentioned personal brand, and I think a lot of times we take it for granted that people understand that concept. And you and I talked on the Business Building Rockstar Summit 2016 about branding. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that now as well, in terms of what is a personal brand and how does it differ from maybe a business brand? And as a expert, what should we know, or if we want to become seen as an expert, what should we know about building our brand from the bottom up?
Yeah, great question, Nicole. So, I mean, at a really basic level, personal brand gets thrown around as a kind of modern term of art. It entered the common parlance 20 years ago now, exactly 20 years ago, thanks to a Tom Peters cover story in Fast Company magazine. But literally all we are talking about, the only thing we're talking about when we say personal brand, in spite of whatever connotations it may have picked up over time, is that your personal brand is your reputation. And so, the question before us is, what is your reputation, and is it what you would like it to be? And if it's not, well, how do we begin to adjust that? How do we get people to see you the way that you would wish to be seen in the world? And so, thinking that through, I think, is an important thing. I mean, sometimes people worry that even thinking about their personal brand somehow implies this level of narcissism about, like, oh, I'm just like, like two people who are too worried about projecting this perfect image, or that it's inauthentic or something like that. And, I mean, the truth is, for anything, there are extreme outliers that do things wrong and look like jackasses in the process. But, at a foundational level, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be aware of your reputation and make sure that it's matching what you feel the reality to be is. Otherwise, I mean, you are pretty adrift if you think you are something and the world is seeing you as something completely different. You need to unify those things so that your true talents can be seen. So that's really what we're talking about and what we're after.
And I think it's important just to mention reputation and qualify that a little bit, because I think a lot of times people think your reputation is what you want people to think about you, but it's not at all. Your reputation is what people say about you when you leave the room, yeah?
Indeed.
Cool. Awesome. So this is just a really quick visit. I know you've got a million things going on with the launch, and
we spent a million hours chillaxing in Orlando, so
it was fun. I got to learn about. Pardon?
This is my Nicole week.
Your Nicole week. Yes, I am dominating. Pani Puri.
Yes.
That's what you taught us about.
Pani Puri. Yeah, that's the $1 million tip today for all of the listeners. It is an extremely delicious Indian appetizer.
Yeah. And now actually I was driving home and I was thinking, man, I'm hungry and I would really like to find India now. And now I'm sad because in Orlando, there's a lot of Indian places, and the one we went to was very good. It was a good pick. Punjabi Kitchen in Kissimmee. That's right. Kissimmee, I think they say. Kissimmee. Okay, yeah. Cool. Awesome. So, yeah, again, I'll just drop that link. It's bbrshow.com/Dorie, Dorie. And before we hop off, is there anything you just want to leave people with in terms of the concept of reinventing you, or standing out as a recognized expert, or anything you want to leave people with about why they should check out your assessment? And then also you're going to be doing a webinar in about a week, eh? Yeah. It's coming up pretty soon. It is going to be March 14th, and that's at 1 p.m. Eastern or 10 a.m. Pacific. And so if folks want to register for that, do you have a special BBR page set up for that already, or should I give them my link to register for the my Nicole link to register for the webinar? Let's make a link right now, and I'll set it up when we're off the air. Amazing. So, what's the link? How can people register for this amazing March 14th webinar, Nicole? Let's say bbrshow.com/March14 for March 14th. Amazing. Sounds good. Okay. Register, folks, right there. Definitely. And if people get your assessment, then you'll let them know about that. I will. Right? I will keep them apprised. Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so very much for being here today. As always, I love hanging out with you, and thank you for sharing about what you're up to. I know that my audience in large part does want to become recognized experts. They do want to become recognized experts, and what I'm finding as my business grows and my business evolves and I become more of an expert in my niche, which is now I'm really focusing on podcast guesting, I'm more and more interested in bringing together people who have complementary offerings and complementary messages. And I think if somebody is interested in getting featured on podcasts as a way to grow their business, grow their personal brand, get known, you have just you've got a foundational program for them to check out. So I'm excited to have you here. I'm excited to promote it, and I'm excited for people to look into it more.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it. And I agree with you completely. I mean, who do podcasters want to have on their shows? Well, it's like, duh, they want an expert. They want someone who has credibility, who has established credibility. And so if you can work to turn the levers to make it easier for others to see and perceive your credibility, then that has all of these downstream effects, that it makes anything else you do easier. It's easier to get clients if you're perceived as an expert. It's easier to get media opportunities and podcast engagements if you're perceived as an expert, because that is what everyone is seeking. There's a lot of pretenders out there, but if they can see, oh, this person actually knows what he's talking about or what she's talking about, then that's where they're going to gravitate.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nicole. Take care.